Hi, this is Daniel Ryan with Odessa After Dark. On episode 14 of Odessa After Dark, we will travel to the Stanton and Coahoma cemeteries, featuring the website Find a Grave, as we look for certain graves for people who are doing their genealogy. And then we have an in-depth conversation with Paul Sadler, who's running for the United States Senate on the Democratic ticket. So join us for episode 14 of Odessa After Dark. Allowed people to search their genealogy where cemeteries prove vital. There's the story that we're doing, the story I'm about to do now deals with a website called findagrave.com. People go on there and are trying to map these cemeteries of the United States, not just by who's buried there, but actually with pictures and stories. And so it's a little history of the American people who have died before us. One of the interesting things that we'll cover in this story is the amount of people who were buried in cemeteries in West Texas that there's no record because there's no headstone. Especially in the 20s and 30s, during the Depression, people, of course, couldn't afford that, and they would get the little metal plaques. But through time, the metal plaques have washed away, been vandalized. So there's a number of people buried in cemeteries in West Texas that nobody has any recollection. And so we're also asking the public's help. If you know of somebody buried in a cemetery in West Texas that is not accounted for, you can write into odessaafterdark@aol.com. Or, as I said before, if you have somebody that you want a picture of, to help findagrave.com, also write us with the cemetery and the name. And so we will continue to cover this story. This is an interesting story as far as the history of West Texas. This is Daniel Ryan for Odessa After Dark. Hi, this is Daniel Ryan with Odessa After Dark, and we're continuing on with our Find a Grave story. We're here at the Coahoma Cemetery in Coahoma, Texas. One of the sad but interesting things about West Texas cemeteries is the amount of unmarked graves. According to a 1990 survey, the Coahoma Cemetery has over 40 unmarked graves here. So we're trying to find out if people have relatives that they know are buried in Coahoma, but do not have a grave. So far, I know of 2 people who are buried here in unmarked graves, so we need like 38. So if you have somebody that's buried in the Coahoma Cemetery, I'm sorry, there's bugs out here. If you have somebody buried in the Coahoma Cemetery or Mount Olive Cemetery, that's in Big Spring with over 500 unmarked graves. It is a daunting task, but you know, sometimes like headstones are our only means of communication to people who come after us that were alive. And each headstone tells a little story, shows a little bit about their personality. So if you're out here somewhere and in an unmarked grave, it's you know, your story isn't being told to its fullest. So we're trying to you know, tell your story that you were here. Now, one of the people that I mentioned is my great-great-grandfather, who died in the 1920s, who was a baseball player. He got pneumonia and was buried out here. And at the time, they would mark it with a little mental cross or something a little metal marking from the funeral home. And of course, through time, through floods, through rains, all that washed away. And so his story is not unique. And so if you have somebody buried in one of the local cemeteries in an unmarked grave, please email us at odessaafterdark@aol.com. Now, with the Find a Grave, we get requests for pictures, and so we are looking for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 headstones. And so we're going to talk to our special guest, Miranda.
We're in Coahoma Cemetery looking for some marked graves of family members that would like to take pictures for their genealogy experiments, and trying to find out where their families may be buried. We have a few on the list here. We have Thomas and Eileen Hall, Willie Collins, Albert Collins, Jeremiah Pyle, Elizabeth Pyle, Daniel Riley, Nonan Villarreal, Albert Hart. And those are the ones that we're going to be looking for today, and we'll keep you updated as we find them. Didn't have any luck finding any of the headstones that we were looking for. We're thinking maybe they are some of the unmarked graves that we're talking about. There's fairly new graves out here. There's not a whole lot of old ones at all. And it just seems like a very peaceful place. People are still being buried out here.
The West Texas Talent Association invites you to the 4th Annual West Texas Talent Search at the Ector Theater. This year's theme, the British Invasion. Join us to see the best singers, bands, musicians, and dancers from West Texas perform songs by top British recording artists. The semifinals are September 22nd, and the top 12 will compete in the finals October 5th for over $2,000 in cash. Tickets range from $8 to $18. A portion of proceeds go to benefit Food for Kids and the Odessa Homeless Coalition. Sponsors of the West Texas Talent Search include
I was born in Freer, then moved to Corpus Christi. I lived in Kermit. I know. Kermit Yellow Jacket.
Yeah.
Kermit Yellow Jacket. My dad used to take me off the Cap Rock to go dove hunting when I was little. My job was to retrieve the birds. Watch out for the shells. This area is very familiar to me. And then when I moved from here, we went up to Pampa. My dad worked in the oil and gas industry. In fact, he told me the other day, this is the first boom in his lifetime that he's missed. He's 78 years old. You're now undergoing a huge boom. How many of you lived here more than 10 years? Everybody in this room? Okay, more than 20 years. You've seen this before, right? Yep. And it's wonderful while it lasts. I was explaining it to Lee when we were driving from Midland over here to Odessa. It's like, it's amazing while it's going on. The activity and the creation and the jobs and the cash flowing back and forth to businesses. And then, and you hope it lasts forever. But we know it doesn't, right? I was in South Carolina when I received a phone call a couple of years back from a friend of mine who served in the legislature named Rob Janelle, who's now the federal judge. He was chairman of appropriation when I was chairman of public education. And some of you may or may not know my background, but I chaired public education. I co-authored the education code. 3 teacher pay raises, consecutive pay raises, first time in the history of our state.
We appreciate you.
Thank you. I passed the largest property tax cut in the history of our state at the time. At the same time, put together a $3.8 billion school finance bill. I oversaw a budget of almost $75 billion in public education. I passed for the first time in the history of our state a public school employee health insurance program to try to get health insurance for not only our teachers, but the maintenance workers, the cafeteria workers, everyone involved. I tell you all of this so that you understand that I am familiar with what your needs are. Because as you run for statewide office, what becomes very apparent is you have very little chance for people to get to know you, and you to get to know them. And so in a matter of 10 minutes here or 15 minutes there, you've got to glean from that person. Is this someone that I want to trust? I want to trust with the highest legislative office in our state, my 6-year term in the United States Senate, one of only 100 people. Do they have the maturity and the understanding to work through our problems? Do they have what it takes by way of character to know that it's important to resolve issues or not? Or are they going to be a movement politician or someone who's more interested in being on TV on Sunday mornings and giving a clever line or a sarcastic line to the news media because it elevates their star? I don't want to be the latter United States Senator. I'm not interested in that. I want to be the former. I want to be the one that you come to when your community has a problem. And government is not a solution to every problem, but there are problems where government can help. And there are things that we can do in an efficient, effective way that make your lives better. He said his desire was to abolish the departments of education, energy, commerce, TSA, and the IRS. Every time I give his list, every single time I give his list, it is the same reaction. People laugh. Aren't we tired of being laughed at? I mean, seriously. Aren't we tired of someone standing up on TV that's supposed to be representing us and saying something stupid that we get laughed about? But let's look at, I just want to look at 3 of those things. The Department of Education. We just took $5.2 billion out of our public education system in the last legislative session. To abolish the Department of Education removes another $5 to $6 billion. It's our early childhood development, our Head Start programs, some of our teacher quality programs. It's some of our ESL programs. It is also the college student loan program. That's children in this very county and all of the counties of the state that would be impacted by an abolishment of the Department of Education. People that have worked their lives to help their children get a better future, children that are willing to take the loan out in the hope of a better future, have that door closed to them. The Department of Commerce is the United States Weather Bureau. That's our hurricane warning system. The next time a big dark cloud appears out here, don't worry about a tornado because there won't be anybody to warn you about it anyway. I mean, this is crazy, reckless stuff. This is not mainstream Republican politics. This is way beyond the pale here. The Department of Energy, that's your alternative energy sources, but it's also your current energy sources. It's improving technology for oil and gas, coal, nuclear, as well as alternative energy. That's what he wants to abolish and do away with. Folks, this is crazy. It is crazy reckless. This is not about party politics. It's not about anything else. No one's negatively attacking him. These are words out of his mouth, his view of government, what he wants to do. And so you have a very clear choice between someone who has a legislative record of bipartisanship, of accomplishment, that holds mainstream views in this state, versus someone who wants to be the attack dog of the Republican Party, a Tea Party movement guy, and wants to abolish fundamental, essential roles of our government. But here's something that you may not know about. It's called water. When we complete the transmission system from West Texas to I-35 that places all this wind energy online, we will be saving 17 billion gallons of water a year. 17 billion gallons of water a year.
Is that for Texas?
Yes, ma'am. To give you some idea, that's the equivalent to the top 8 feet of Lake Travis every single year. The top 4 feet of Lake Texoma every single year, which feed Dallas-Fort Worth, and the other one feeds Austin. We use a tremendous amount of water in almost every generation source that we do except wind. Wind does not. You know that water is our most precious natural resource. We don't live without it. We can live with almost everything else, but without water, you last days. That's it. We also have all the fresh water we're ever going to have. Did you know that? We have today all the fresh water we ever had and all the fresh water we will ever have in the future. It is a closed cycle system. And so whenever you destroy 1 million gallons of water, you destroy 1 million gallons of water you can't replace. Now, I'm all for oil and gas exploration. I'm all for the jobs it creates. I'm all for the economic boom it creates. But we're using a lot of water. And we're not just using it, we're destroying it.
You talk.
And then when you highlight simply the policy statements that came out of his mouth, okay, not negative campaigning, just his position on education, energy, commerce, Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, I win. It's that simple because of exactly what you're saying. Most people, when they actually hear what he stands for, says, that's not me. That's not good, and it is so reckless and dangerous. It's not what we want in the United States Senate. The challenge is being able to raise the money when I will not go to some outside group like Club for Growth and beg them for money to own your U.S. Senate seat. I'm not going to do that. And so, I've asked the people of Texas to donate. They're donating in larger numbers and more money. Whether or not it comes in fast enough, we'll see. If you're not familiar with UN Agenda 21, if you saw in the news the other day where the Lubbock County judge got on national TV, once again made everybody in the country laugh at us because he said he was raising taxes to prevent the UN from invading Lubbock County. Well, Ted Cruz was on Glenn Beck saying that the UN was coming after our golf courses.
There you go.
And that they were declaring war on all of our golf courses. And he's got this UN Agenda 21 all over his website. Here's the thing. More importantly to me than the UN stuff is Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, because that affects us where we live and breathe, and that affects our families. A lot of people have forgotten that when Social Security was enacted, half of our senior citizens live below poverty. And that without Social Security, half of our senior citizens go back below poverty. This was a safety net created for us, a promise we made to each other. And I will not abandon our senior citizens today that paid for the generation that went before them. I'm not going to do that. And I don't want the young people today thinking they can do that, because that's the trick they're trying to play. They're trying to say this money's not going to be here for you, therefore let's dump the program or change the program. But what you're going to do is affect the people that we're responsible for paying for. Okay? We're not going to abandon those that have paid for the ones that went before. Medicare, a voucher system Medicare, is the worst disaster you can imagine, because you turn your lives over to private insurance. They give you a piece of money, and then you go out and buy private insurance, but as healthcare costs continue to rise, what do you think is going to happen to you? Your premium is going to go higher, you're going to have to pay more, but even worse, my mother and father-in-law were diagnosed with Alzheimer's within 30 days of each other. My father-in-law worked for over 30 years at Texas Eastman as an electrician. He retired with long-term health insurance, disability, and retirement. Within 60 days of being diagnosed, all of his insurance companies denied both of them coverage, saying that Alzheimer's wasn't a chronic disease. If you go to a system where they give you a voucher, where you have to go buy private insurance, I can promise you, you better raise a lawyer at the same time, because you're going to need one.
And you have dementia, how you don't know where to go.
And you don't know where exactly right. And plus, can you imagine somehow taking people in their later years, some of them with early stages of Alzheimer's, and say, we're going to give you money, now you go out and shop in what is the most complex market in the entire country. That is the long-term care insurance market. You go out and shop and figure out what you want to do. I mean, it is an insane, destructive, reckless program. Similarly, the limitation and destruction of Medicaid. A lot of people believe that Medicaid is the poor person's program. Folks, 7 out of 10, 70% of our seniors in nursing homes today are dependent on Medicaid. 70% of our nursing home population. It is also children with disabilities. It's children with handicaps, blind children, deaf children. It is the mother and father I met 3 days ago, the father who's a pharmaceutical rep making 6 figures, and his wife who is a doctor, a physician at Scott & White, whose child was born with charge. It's an acronym for a condition that did not have enough insurance, although both had great insurance policies, a pharmaceutical rep and a doctor, okay? And their child, they could not cover all the procedures. And that child will never have coverage except for the Affordable Care Act and the expansion of Medicare. It is not just the poor person's safety net, it's all of our safety nets. And what they want to do is destroy this. And so, you know, we say every election, and it's a selfish thing for a candidate to say in every election, this is the most important election of your lifetime. But these issues are where we live and breathe. They are where we live and breathe and where we raise our families, where we work. And so, more so than ever, I really need your help. We've got to convince these people that this is beyond party politics. This is beyond what you may want to call yourself. You may want to call yourself a Republican or a Democrat or a conservative, whatever. We are way beyond the pale of this. We're talking about our family's well-being and the challenge to the safety nets we promise to each other.